The complete works of Swami Vivekananda, Volume 5, Section 2, Interviews. On the Bonds of Hinduism, Prabudha Bharat, April 1899. Having been directed by editor, writers are representative to interview Swami Vivekananda on the question of the converts to Hinduism. I found an opportunity one evening on the roof of the Ganga houseboat. On the roof of Ganga houseboat. It was always after nightfall. It was after nightfall, and we had stopped at the embank- embankment of Ramakrishna Mutt, and there the Swami came down to speak with me. Time and place were alike delightful. Overhead the stars and around the rolling Ganga, and on one side stood the dimly lighted building with its background of palms and lofty shade trees. I want to see him, Swami. I want to see you, Swami. I began. On this matter of receiving back into Hinduism those who have been pervaded, those who have been perverted from it, is it your opinion that they should be received? Certainly, said the Swami, they can and ought to be taken. He said gravely for a moment, thinking, and then resumed. Beside, he said, we shall otherwise decrease in number. When the Mohammedans first came, we are said, I think on the authority of Farista, the oldest Mohammedan historian, to have been 600 millions of Hindus. Now we are about 200 millions. And then every man going out of Hindu pale is not only a man less, but an enemy the more. Again, the vast majority of Hindu pervert to Islam and Christianity are perverts by the sword or the descendant of this. It would be obviously unfair to subject this to disabilities of any kind. Has the case of Born Alliance, did you say? Why? Born Alliance have been converted in the past by crowds and the process is still going on. In my own opinion, this statement not only applies to aboriginal tribes, to outlying nations, and to almost all our conquerors before the Mohammedan conquest, but also to all those castes who find a special origin in the Puranas. I hold that they have been alliance thus adopted. Ceremonies of expiation Ceremonies of expiation are no doubt suitable in the case of willing converts returning to the mother church as it were, but on those who were alienated by conquest, as in Kashmir and Nepal, or on stranger wishing to join us, no penance should be imposed. But of what caste would these people be? No penance should be imposed. But what caste would these people be, Swamiji? I venture to ask. They must have some, or they can never be assimilated into a great body of Hindu. Thus, where shall we look for their rightful place? Returning converts, said the Swami quietly, will gain their own caste, of course, and the new people will make theirs. You will remember, he added, that this has already been done in the case of Vaishnavism. Converts from different castes and alliances were all able to combine under that flag and form a caste by themselves, and very respectable one too. From Ramanuj down to the Chaitanya of Bengal, all great Vaishnava teachers have done the same. And where should these new people expect to marry? I asked. Among themselves, as they do now, said the Swami quietly. Then has two names, I inquired. I suppose aliens and perverts who have adopted non-Hindu names should be named newly. Would you give them caste names or what? Certainly, said the Swami thoughtfully. There is a great deal in the name, and on this question he would say no more. But my next inquiry drew blood. Would you leave this newcomers, Swamiji, to choose their own form of religious belief out of many visaged Hinduism, or would you chalk out a religion for them? Can you ask that? He said. They will choose for themselves. For unless a man chooses for himself, the very spirit of Hinduism is destroyed. The essence of our faith consists simply in the freedom of the Ishta. I thought the utterance a weighty one. I thought the utterance a weighty one. For the man before me has spent more years than anyone else living. I fancy I fancy in studying the common basis of Hinduism in the scientific and sympathetic spirit. And the freedom of the Ishtar is obviously a principle big enough to accommodate the world. But the talk passed to other matter, and then with the cordial good night, this great leader of religion lifted his lantern and went back into the monastery. While I, by the pathless path of the Ganga, in and out amongst her craft of many sizes, made the best of my way back to Calcutta home. Section 3. Notes from the lecture and discourses. First, on Karma Yoga. Isolation of the soul from all objects, mental and physical, is the goal. When When that is attained, the soul will find that it was alone all the time and is required no one to make it happy. As long as we require someone else to make us happy, we are slaves. When the Purush finds that it is free and does not require anything to complete itself, this nature is quite unnecessary, then freedom, that is Kaivalya, is attained. Men run after a few dollars and do not think anything of cheating a fellow being to get those dollars. But if they could restrain themselves in a few years, they would develop such character as would bring millions of dollars if they wanted them. Then there will would govern the universe. But we are all such fools. What is the use of talking of one's mistakes to the world? What is the use of talking of one's mistake to the world? They cannot thereby be undone. For what one has done, one must suffer, one must try to do better. The world sympathizes only with the strong and powerful. It is only work that is done has a free will offering to humanity and to nature that does not bring with it any binding attachment. Duty of any kind is not to be a slide. Duty of any kind is not to be slide. A man who does the lower work is not, for the reason only, a lower man than he who does the higher work. A man should not be judged by the nature of his duties, but by the manner in which he does them. His manner of doing them and his power to do them are indeed the test of the man. A shoemaker who can turn out a strong, nice pair of shoes in the shortest possible time is the better man according to his profession and his work than the professor who talks nonsense every day of his life. Every duty is holy, and devotion to duty is the highest form of worship of God. It is certainly a source of great help in enlightening and emancipating the deluded and ignorance encumbered souls of baddhas, the bound baddhas souls of the Baddhas, the bound ones. By doing well the duty which is nearest to us, the duty which is in our hands now, we make ourselves stronger and improving our strength in this manner step by step. We may even reach a state in which it shall be our privilege to do the most coveted and honored duties in the life and in the society. Nature's justice is uniformly stern and relenting. The most practical man would call life neither good nor evil. Every successful man must have behind him somewhere tremendous integrity, tremendous sincerity, and that is the cause of his signal success in life. He may not have been perfectly unselfish, yet he was tending towards it. If he had been perfectly unselfish, his would have been as great a success as that of Buddha or that of Christ. The degree of unselfishness marks the degree of success everywhere. The great leaders of mankind belong to the higher field than the field of platform work. However, we may try, there cannot be any action which is perfectly pure or any which is perfectly impure. Taking purity and impurity in the sense of injury and non injury, we cannot breathe or live without injuring others. And every morsel of food we eat is taken from another's mouth. Our very lives are crowding out some other lives. It may be those of man or animal or fungi, but someone, somewhere we have to crowd out. That being the case, it naturally follows the perfection can never be attained by work. We may walk through all eternity, but there will be no way out of the intricate maze. We may walk on and on and on, but there will be no end. The man who walks through freedom and love gets nothing for result, but the slave want his whipping. The servant want his pay. So with all life, take for instance the public life. The public speaker wants a little applause or a little hissing and hooting. If you keep him in the corner without it, you kill him, for he requires it. This is walking through slavery. To expect something in return under such condition becomes second nature. Next comes the work of the servant who requires some pay. I give them, I give this, and you give me that. I give this, and you give me that. Nothing is easier to say, I work for work's sake, but nothing is so difficult to attain. I would go 20 miles on my hands and knees to look on the face of the man who can work for work's sake. There is a motive somewhere. If it is not money, it is power. If it is not power, it is gain. Somehow, somewhere, there is a motive power. You are my friend, and I want to work for you and with you. This is all very well, and every moment I may protestation of my sincerity. But take care, you must be sure to agree with me. If you do not, I shall no longer take care of you and live for you. This kind of work for motive brings misery. That work alone brings unattachment and bliss, wherein we work as masters of our own minds. The great lesson to learn is that I am not the standard by which the whole universe is to be judged. Each man is to be judged by its own idea, each race by its own standard and ideal, each custom of each country by its own reasoning and conditions. American customs are the result of the environment in which the Americans live, and the Indian customs are the result of the environment in which the Indians are, and so the China, Japan, England, and every other country. We all find ourselves in the position for which we are fit. Each ball finds its own hole, and if one has some capacity above another, the world will find that out too. In the universal adjusting that goes on. So it is no use to grumble. There may be a rich man who is wicked, and there must be in that man certain qualities that make him rich. And if any other man has the same qualities, he will also become rich. What is the use of fighting and complaining? That will not help us to better things. He who grumbles at the little things that has fallen to his lot to do with grumble at everything. Always grumbling, he will lead to miserable life and everything will be a failure. But the man who does his duty as he goes. But the man who does his duty as he goes, putting his shoulder on the wheel, will see the light and higher duties will fall to his share. Next, on fanaticism. There are fanatics of various kinds. Some people are wine fanatics, some are cigarette fanatics. Some think that if a man gave up smoking cigar, the world would arrive at the millennium. Women are generally among these fanatics. There was a young lady here one day in this class. She was one of the number of ladies in Chicago who have built a house where they take in working people and give them music and gymnastic. One day this young lady was taking about the evils of the world and said was talking about the evils of the world and said she knew the remedy. I asked, "How do you know?" And she answered, "Have you seen Hulk, Hulk House?" In her opinion, this Hulk house is the one panacea for all the evils that flesh is here too. This will grow upon her. I am sorry for her. There are some fanatics in India who think that if a woman could marry again when her husband died, it would cure all evils. This is fanaticism. When I was a boy, I thought that fanaticism was the great element in the work. But now, as I grow older, I find out that it is not. There may be a woman who would still and make no objection to taking someone else back, going away with it, but perhaps that woman does not smoke. She becomes a smoke fanatic as soon as she finds a man smoking, she strongly disapproves of him because she smokes a cigar. There may be a man who goes about cheating people. There is no trusting him. No woman is safe with him. But perhaps this scoundrel does not drink wine. If so, he sees nothing good in anyone who drinks wine. All these wicked things that he himself does are of no consideration. This is the only natural human selfishness and one sidedness. You must not remember that the world has God to govern it, and He has not left it to our charity. The Lord God is its governor and maintainer. And in spite of this wine fanatics and cigar fanatics and all sort of marriage fanatics, it would go on. If all these persons were to die, it would go on non the worse. Do you not remember in your own history how the Mayflower people came out here and began to call themselves Pu- Puritans? Puritans. They were very pure and good as far as they went until they began to persecute other people and thought and throughout the history of mankind has been the same. Even those that run away from persecution indulge in persecuting others as soon as a favorable opportunity to do so occurs. In 90 cases out of 100, fanatic must have bad livers and they are dyspeptic, dyspeptic or are in some way diseased. By degrees, even physical physicians will find out that fanaticism is the kind of disease. I have seen plenty of it. The Lord save me from it. My experience comes to this that it is rather wise to avoid all sort of fanatical reforms. This world is slowly going on. Let it go slowly. Why are you in the hurry? Sleep well and keep your nerves in good order. Eat right food and have sympathy with the world. Fanatics only make hatred. Do you mean to say that the temporary fanatic loves these poor people who become drunken? A fanatic is a fanatic simply because he expects to get something for himself in return. As soon as the battle is over, he goes for the spoil. When you come out of the company of fanatics, you may learn how really to love and sympathize. And the more you attend of love and sympathy, the less will be your power to condemn these poor creatures. Rather, you will sympathize with their faults. It will become possible for you to sympathize with the drunkard and to know that he is also a man like yourself. You will then try to understand the many circumstances that are dragging him down and feel that if you had been in his place, you would perhaps have committed suicide. I remember a woman whose husband was a great drunkard, and she complained to me of his becoming so. I replied, Madam, if there were 20 millions of wives like yourself, all husbands would become drunkard. I am convinced that a large number of drunkards are manufactured by their wives. My business is to tell the truth and not to flatter anyone. This unruly woman, from whose mind the words, bear and forbear are gone forever, and whose false ideas of independence led them to think that men should be at their feet, and who begin to howl as soon as men dare to say anything to them which they do not like. Such women are becoming the bane of the world, and it is the wonder that they do not drive half the men in it to commit suicide. In this way, things should not go on. Life is not so easy as they believe it to be. It is a more serious business. A man must only not only have faith but intellectual faith too. To make a man take up everything and believe it would be to make him a lunatic. I once had a book sent me which said I must believe everything told in it. It said that there was no soul, but that there were gods and goddesses in heaven, and a thread of light going from each of our head to heaven. How did the writer know all these things? She had been inspired and wanted me to believe it too. And because I refused, she said, You must be a very bad man. There is no hope for you. This is fanaticism.